And we have a special guest back there, Mr. Jackie Bob Martin. And I'd ask him if he'd mind doing the invocation this morning.
Good morning. Let's thank the Lord for another good day to get together to work for our people. Nasa Kalale Kosanale Hanjosa Soveto. And need the luck to go in there to the daylight goes to the last on there. On these daily. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer. We're thankful for another day of life you've given us to watch over us and meet our needs. And I pray for our leaders, Lord, that give them the wisdom that they need, Lord, to take care of the needs of our people, our Cherokee nation. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Okay, roll call.
Meredith Rayleigh. Here. Bill Anglin.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Julia Coates. Here. Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk. Here. Janelle Fulbright. Here. Don Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
Tana Glory Jordan.
Present.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris Soap. David Thornton.
Here.
Karen Cowan Watts. All honey. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Okay, the purpose of this special meeting is today to discuss the redistricting per the Supreme Court opinion SC 201005. And before you have a packet there in front of you that has 3 different acts with proposed maps for each act. But before we consider those, is there any questions on the memo from the Attorney General and our counsel, Mr. Emery, that was attached, that is attached to your packet? I think we're all clear that the Supreme Court, because of severability clause included in the act, the portion that covered the configuration was ruled unconstitutional, but that doesn't mean the whole act is unconstitutional. So based on that, we've asked David Justice to propose certain maps, and there are 4 of them attached there on the 5 district maps. Are there any questions on the memo? We have someone from the Attorney General's office here if we have any questions. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 2. Ms. Cowan talked to me about geodata and the best way to approach this redistricting and the configuration of the district. And Ms. Cowan Watts, do you want to take it from there, or?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. So I think the courts have delineated that we have to use our best available data today. And just to make sure all minds are clear, the best available data that we have today would be the zip code and the county as declared by the tribal citizen at the time they register. So what we need to know is, going forward, do we want to the doorstep level? And that may not be decided today. I think that the map's the most important thing today, but going forward, so that there's no misassumptions on behalf of this body, or that all minds are clear in the public, going forward, do we have doorstep geocoding data? Do we have down to a street level, which might mean it's down to accuracy of like 10 to 15 homes? Do we have down to a neighborhood within a zip code? Do we only have accuracy to a zip code? Because if going forward we do get more, we get maybe more, I don't want to say more efficient, but better, more accurate, down to even less than 10% deviation on a area for representation, then we would need more accurate.
Just one moment.
Okay.
Did you have a question on a certain point she made?
Madam Speaker, I just wondered if, in the context of this discussion, if we could ask relevant questions of Mr. Justice. But I don't want to cut off the councilwoman. I just wanted to give the cue.
Okay. Is Mr. Justice here? He's way in the back.
And if I could, I guess my question is to David is what accuracy level do we have today that he's presented forward? Because I think that we're mistaking 911 addressing for something that maybe not. So.
Do you want to direct that to Mr. Justice?
So, Mr. Justice, how do you geocode? Is that address a zip +4, or is it just a zip code? How are you geocoding? What level of geocoding are you doing with addresses today?
It totally depends on the county itself. If a county has a 911 office and they are maintaining a roads data set where they are updating the addresses on it, then we can get down to a specific address point, meaning 704 Hillcrest Avenue can be pinpointed. In my experience, it's usually within feet as to exactly where that house is located. But for the counties where we don't have 911 or they are not maintaining a roads data set, the best that we can do is zip code level. So if Cherokee County, for example, did not have 911 and they were not maintaining a roads data set, every address that had a zip code of 74464, the best I could tell you is it's in that zip code boundary of 74464. I can't tell you exactly where inside of that boundary.
May I just so that my mind is clear, if a county has 911 addressing and has the roads data,
Yes.
then you are getting to a lat and long, which identifies a doorstep at a household within a few feet.
Exactly.
But if they don't have both 911 addressing and maintain the roads database or data, then we cannot get to that level. If it's just 911 addressing, to what level can we get to it if they don't have the roads data on top of that?
That's
Is it
a little
pretty
more
much like a neighborhood then,
difficult.
maybe?
I'll, in some instances, that's really a complex question. It's really hit and miss. The best that we can hope for really is just down to the zip code level in those instances.
So we can't just address 911 addressing, we would also have to address the needs for the roads data on top
Absolutely.
of it.
Yeah.
Can we do a doorstep or lat long addressing and pinpointing with just the roads data and no 911 addressing, or it has to be coupled with both?
It's both.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Hoskin.
Thank you, Ms. Figure, and thank you, David, for the work you've done. And you've done a lot of work for a lot of us. I know, in particular, on Thursday of last week, you did a lot of work on some conference calls with me, and I appreciate that. As you know, the law as it stands right now, that which was not struck down by the court sets a 2012 target for lack of a better word, getting better numbers and revisiting redistricting. That law was passed in the summer. What kind of steps has been taken within your department to get us closer to that goal?
Right now, we're just looking at kind of what each county has and where they stand. Just kind of doing an inventory of what's out there.
Will you need anything in terms of new equipment, new software, additional manpower to reach that goal? Have you made that assessment yet?
We haven't made that assessment yet. We're still looking into that.
Okay. What's the time frame for decide? I mean, if it's a question that you need better software, I mean, and I'm a layman in this regard, but I mean, is that something that we've got to get on now? I mean,
well, fortunately, it looks like on our part, we're not going to need software or equipment. It's really going to come down to the counties. We don't really have a say over each county's 911 office. We are relying upon them to make sure that they are addressing their 911 needs.
as you've been preparing these maps, if I remember right, you had occasion to visit with some officials with the state of Oklahoma.
Yes.
If you look at any state legislative map, you see that lines are drawn down streets. Sometimes they fall along county commission lines. They'll try to follow along well-known landmarks, but short of that, they follow along existing political boundaries. Do you know how it is they do it in these counties where you lack that underlying data?
Yes. The Census Bureau delineates geographic boundaries, and the smallest geographic boundary that they have are known as census blocks. And in these census blocks, they determine from the decennial census where an individual or a household resides inside of each census block, and they assign roughly 100 to 200 households or individuals, I guess I should say, to each census block. And then that small defined geography is then used, as you're talking about, to delineate political boundaries, and most of those census blocks are delineated along known geographic boundaries such as roads.
How is it are you saying they arrive at a number of 100, or does it depend on the lay of the land, so to speak? I mean, are they arriving at a fairly arbitrary number for that small unit?
I'm not sure.
I mean, are they getting actual numbers from that small geographic unit?
Oh, it's actual numbers.
It's actual numbers, and I don't know if you were part of the discussion at that time. But at one time, what we looked at is in these problem areas where we didn't have sufficient data, is actually for Cherokee Nation to do a census in these very limited areas. I actually thought that was an approach we could do. If we've been talking back in the summer, I'd still say that. I don't think we can do it now. But from your standpoint, is it feasible that we do a census in areas where let's say the counties fall short of our target of 2012? Could we do a census? If we did a census, could we get you that data, and then could you incorporate that data into drafting maps in 2012?
I would guess so if we had the manpower, because you're talking about a lot of manpower.
Well, we are if we're talking about the entire nation. What if we're talking about those pockets of the nation where we don't have sufficient data, particularly those at the border where we know that a zip code will overlap our national boundary? I mean, if we were to do a targeted census in that area, couldn't we come up with some pretty accurate numbers with a reasonable amount of manpower?
Well, you're still talking about quite a large area. I think it would still take quite a bit of manpower to get something like this done, because in my experience of making these maps and looking at the geocoding, it's about half of the area has it, about half the area doesn't. So you're talking about trying to do a door-to-door census of possibly 7 of the counties to try and get an accurate count of where our Cherokee citizens are.
And I think, just to clarify the record, I think that if we were talking about a mail census, strictly not a door-to-door, but
Right.
I think I appreciate that it's still a big area. Right now, we say the best way to count our people is a method that includes zip codes, and we know these zip codes straddle our national boundary. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
We know without a question that we're counting people using this method that live outside of the Cherokee Nation. Is that a fair statement?
I think so.
Wouldn't it be a better estimate if we were to look at the land area or look at some other factors and come up with an estimate of what's in that zip code? Wouldn't that be more accurate than what is a fairly arbitrary method, which is to take a zip code as we find it and accept on face value that those numbers are accurate and we ought to use them?
I guess that's for y'all to decide. I don't know how to answer that exactly. It's just another method of coming up with a number.
But you've said what the best method is in response to Councilor Cowan-Watt's question. But the method I'm suggesting would not be as good as the method that we're using now.
Well, I think it could be.
Do you?
Right.
Is Mr. Ragsdale?
Mr. Hoskin
have a
has the
question?
floor here.
If Mr. Ragsdale had a statement, I'd be glad to hear it.
Well, I was just going to point out, the principal chief formed a work group that you referred to earlier, and David has reported on that, but one of the issues and one of the things that the work group is approaching is trying to verify through our registration and various data collection agencies actual addresses. Now, so long as it's voluntary to put your mailing address on the registration package, and it's not necessary, and that's what fuzzes it up. Maybe one approach may be just to send out letters of submittal to ask people to put their physical location on the address, so that would tighten the accuracy of the count. That's one of the things that the work group has been considering.
And that's along the lines, Madam Speaker, of what we had proposed, which is to do a targeted census, which involved mailing out from registration and finding out these numbers. Now, we didn't do that back in the summer when we talked about it, and had we done it, we might be talking about different numbers now. And that's nothing on you, because it was this body that did not take that approach. Do you have an opinion about whether we're going to get there in 2012, whether the counties more precisely are going to get there by 2012?
Most of the counties, I think it's looking good to have it done, but there are a couple of counties that are either just getting started or they have no plans at all. The two counties that I'm referring to are McIntosh County, which it looks like they are just in the very beginning stages of trying to get something started, and Nowata County. Nowata County, as of right now, doesn't have anything in plans. If they had started just now, I would say it'd be really close, but I don't know. It depends on if they get the money.
And you may not have an answer to this question, may not want to, but it seems like we need to have a plan B for those counties if we're going to improve our numbers, just in case they fall through. I mean, if you look at Nowata County's fiscal outlook, I don't know that it improves much over the next couple of years, and they're pretty cash-strapped. I can't speak to McIntosh County, but I think we're going to have a plan B. Well, that's all the questions I have from Mr. Justice. I appreciate it.
Mr. Troskin. Mr. Buzzer?
David, you talked about the counties having road data. How many counties do not have the road data? Do you know the answer to that? Maybe check and ask those people.
When we did the geocoding for this round of redistricting, it was about half of them did not have it. From our initial research and looking into what each county has as of now, there are, I would say, 4 or 5, if I remember right off the top of my head, that either don't have it or are not working on it.
And who did you ask that? Did you ask the ODOT or did you ask the county commissioner?
I called the 911 coordinator for each county.
And then just to further explain to me and maybe some of the people, tell us what the zip code +4 means.
I don't know if I can give you a good definition of what it means, honestly.
Well, I heard Councilor Watts talk about zip code +4. Maybe she could tell us.
Mr. Crittenden, can you respond to that?
The +4 on the zip code is, for instance, my post office box number still was box 542. Okay, so the zip code there is 74960-0452. Okay, if you're on a rural route, it can be the last 4 digits of whatever you're, like my Route 3 box 2363. It should be 2363, Route 3 box, you know. So it's a smaller defining, but it has nothing to do with anything other than mail delivery.
That's it.
Okay. And the same thing with the zip code. Whenever we try to use zip codes, just like Cherokee County and Adair County, if anybody's familiar with that country, everything on 51 Highway from the county line to Eldon Hill or to the creek is 74960. So if you look at your map and you think 74960 stops at the county line, well, it don't. There's several hundred people probably in that valley, all up and down through there, that are actually that we deliver mail to. So zip code is not where you get your most accurate information as to where somebody lives.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Buzzer?
Yeah.
Ms. Calm-Watts?
I think that the courts decided pretty early that it was the self-declared address zip code plus the county that would delineate on the borders. So the way I understood it, that's how the data should have been processed as well. That there were some decisions in some areas where we had to kind of guesstimate, and it was supposed to be consistent, but then ultimately we would go by how someone said which county they actually lived in, plus the zip code, and that's how you layer the information to determine. That should be, because that's what the courts have said. So, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ms. Fisher? Ms. Fishing Hawk?
David, I was looking at some of the notes when the time she was in here talking to us about this. I got several pages of it. Chuck's asking you if it was the most accurate method in determining the population across Cherokee Nation. You stated using 911 along the boundaries and zip codes. For the rest is the most accurate. You also stated, Mr. Justice stated, due to the inherent flaws in using the land-based or proportionate method, there's too many flaws in it. Bill John asked you if the best absolute method was using 911 along the border zips. And you stated, yes, it is until we get better data. But go on to some more. Chuck asked you if the most accurate set of numbers in your opinion. You said use the combined method with 911 along border zips. You said you took pretty extensive steps to make sure not to include anybody outside the 14-county jurisdictional area. You said use 911 once again and go with whatever registration says on the rest. And it's just over and over. I'm basically saying the same thing because if you remember that day, we drilled you quite a bit, especially the lawyers on the council. And Bill John asked one last time of you and Todd Inlow about using this information as the best, as a benchmark, and both you and Todd Inlow agreed. So do you still say that it's best to use the 911 along the border zips to get the most accurate numbers and then take the zip codes inside?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 911 along the boundary zip codes is similar to what Ms. Colleen Watts was referring to earlier. That's where we're actually getting a pinpoint of where each individual lives. If we have that information for a zip code, I think it's best to use that, especially along the boundary zip, because we can give a determination of who is in and who is out.
Okay. That's all I have for you,
Mr. Hembry?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, as to the as where we're at right now as vis-a-vis the courts, Ms. Karen Watts had stated that the courts had said that we would use the total zip codes. Judge Fite did rule that the total zip code would be used, and that figure was 122,000 some odd citizens. After that ruling, we came back, and knowing what we've talked about finding the best data possible, this committee had a consensus that there was, as of that date, May of 2009, 110,823 citizens in the Cherokee Nation. That is the figure that we moved forward with to create the 5-district map that went before Judge Fite. Judge Fite approved that map and approved that data figure. That was appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court also considered the 110,832 figure. They took no umbrage with that population figure, and the reasoning for the decision of the Supreme Court is that one district deviated above 10% for a total of 22% based on 110,823 figure. So for the discussion that's taking place here today is very good, and obviously we want to use the best figure possible, but it would be my opinion that for the purposes of drawing up figures today that we stick with the 110,823 figure.
Thank you, Mr. Hembry. Ms. Fishing Hawk and then Ms. Porter Jordan.
Tom? I've got an email here from the Attorney General, and she said yes, and I do believe you had a copy of that. We do start with registration numbers, as I stated in my email below, because Judge Fite has already addressed this order.
Mm-hmm.
Is this correct?
That's the email, yes.
We start with, okay, registration numbers. Okay, thank you.
Porter Jordan.
Well, David, I'm just a little confused. I'm looking at 3 maps that you have provided us last week. And just take Wagner County, for example. On this one map that says 7210, we were showing 2,677 people in Wagner County. Then we go to the next map which is 62510. We're showing 614.91 in Wagner County. Then on the 7/12/10 map, we're showing 1381.88. Were people dying, moving?
Can I see them real quick?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a moving target. And that's just one county. I think you gave those numbers on Thursday.
This one is,
I noticed another date down here, 5/22.
yeah, they're all based off of the registration from that time. This one is going to represent
Whole county.
whole zip code. So it's not, we didn't try to adjust it on this map.
Okay, so the whole zip code for Wagner County has 2,677.
474467.
Okay.
Zip code.
What's this 614.91?
This one is trying to adjust doing the proportionment of land base. So out of this number, the percent of land base, the number's been adjusted. So if this is 20% of this number, that means 20% of 74464 is in.
And what is this number here?
This one is combined. This one is adjusting the number with 911.
So are
For
we
the entire
saying the
county.
1381,
Is everything that
88
lives-
is the most accurate in your opinion? Because it combines both 911.
where it's available, but Wagner County doesn't have it. This is going to be the 1380.
They have it, they just haven't finished doing.
Right, the
Okay.
QAQC on it, yeah.
So which one of these numbers are we using in the 110? The 1381,
Yes.
88?
Yeah.
So we just kind of hit in the middle.
Well, there are
Based on the
3 or 4 different zip codes that are represented in this area, so it's going to be a combination of all of them.
And that's just one county where we had 3 different numbers, depending on how you want to figure the numbers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, folks, these numbers are flawed. I mean, totally flawed. And I keep going back to that problem. We did the best we could before because we knew the numbers were flawed. And now we're coming back here and revisiting this again, but it's whatever number you want to pull out of there. I feel like giving y'all all a map and a crayon and say write in the number you want, because there's so many different ways to figure this number. And that's just one, that's probably our smallest county, is Wagner County, one of our smallest counties. And right here is 3 different ways to figure the number in Wagner County. I just want to point that out, that everybody's throwing numbers around, but next time if we meet again, I'm bringing you a map and write in the number you like the best for your county, because that's about as accurate as you're going to get it.
I think going forward, we'll probably organize a work group in order to clear out all of this confusion. And I'll appoint 4 or 5 people to a work group, and going forward from here on, so we can get accurate numbers, we can get the methodology that David recommends and get down pat. So in order to move forward today, that's an objective that I would like to try to accomplish in order to get the most accurate data for 2013.
But just in one county, we have 2,000 people difference depending on how you're figuring the number, and that is one of the smallest counties in the 14 counties. And that's the point that needs to be made, is it's any number you want to grab. I have never agreed with Counselor Kara's numbers. Never have I agreed with them. And I don't mean that out of disrespect to her, but I know that we're including at-large people to get to those numbers, and that's very offensive to me, because the at-large people have 2 at-large counselors. And so I think that we need to be real careful what we do today, because we're just grabbing numbers out of the air.
David, do you recommend that we form a work group? Would that be the best way to resolve this, or what would you recommend?
I think it would definitely be a way of trying to come, I think it would definitely be a way of trying to come to an agreement.
Mr. Enlow, you're rising.
Yeah, a couple things that I've wanted to step up here several times during this conversation.
I can tell you didn't answer.
Yeah, well, thank you. A couple things. One is I'm actually helping to steer this 911 addressing committee that we reported out and that you guys referred to earlier in this meeting. And I definitely think moving forward on that, we have some addressing things that we can clean up inside our addresses through registration and other places, and then providing technical assistance and resources to the 12 counties that are either in process or have good 911 data. And then, as Mr. Hoskins suggested, is we have to come up with some backup plan for those 2 counties that are not going to have it, more likely than not, by the 2013 election. The other thing that I would like to address, while we were sitting here talking, I looked up Zip Plus 4. And so Zip Plus 4, the way we apply it in our area, because it's very rural, doesn't really allow us any more geographic boundaries. That is, it's used more heavily in urban areas, so you can define a city block. And so in an urban environment, Zip Plus 4 actually allows you to get better geographic location than just the zip code. But because of our rural locations, it's not that beneficial to us. And then the other thing is that the methodology that that David and staff and everybody has provided has been trying to address the questions and the council's desire to try and come up with the best count and the best representation. That's why the numbers fluctuate. We looked at data from a variety of standpoints, from 911 to zip codes to counties to proportion method. And I think ultimately what's best is something that the court would also be satisfied with, and that is fair and equal representation to all of our citizens across the board. So if the council is willing to work with us on a small task force, I think that would make us even stronger if we work together on it.
Great.
Thank you.
Ms. Conway.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm kind of concerned because I think the way if we ended the conversation today, right here where we're at, it would appear that we're just making up numbers, and I don't think that's the case. If data is bad because tribal citizens have not updated us with their current address or let us know that someone's passed away or those kind of things. Otherwise, Geodata has pulled data from registration per the Constitution. Then during the court case, it was settled out to determine whether someone was at large or not in a border zip code. It was settled out that their self-declaration on what we call our citizenship cards are often referred to as blue cards, and it shows on there where if I'm in a border zip code in Rogers County, I have to tell them whether I'm in Rogers County, Tulsa County, or Wagner County, in addition to the zip code I provide for the mailing address. So those things were settled out. What I guess concerns me is the lack of ownership for making decisions. I've been trying to address this issue for 7 years, but this council has had almost 4 years to declare a very clear and concise data methodology that we could all agree on, and we chose not to. So I hope that we don't try to muddle the debate by just declaring it some kind of making up numbers and those kind of things, because that's problematic and that is not true. So what we do have is we have citizenship information for people who are born until 100 plus years old, where they have given us information, and that's all we can rely on for citizenship per the Constitution from the registrar, and he has kindly interpreted that in maps for Geodata. And yes, we need to do better, and the only way we can probably do that is through census and through the work with the counties on Geodata, on 911 addressing and such. That is clear. But that does not mean we're making up numbers, and I really am concerned about that inference. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ms. Gloria Jordan.
And I'm quite the opposite. I stand on my statement. We are making up numbers. whatever the best number was for that particular person is the number they have grabbed a hold of in this process. And it's especially true with at least one council member sitting here today. I think the only way that we're ever going to get accurate numbers is by doing our own census, not tapping into the census done by the counties, not tapping into the 911. We're fully capable of doing our own door-to-door census and making sure that we know where our Cherokee citizens are at. And if we're going to put money into this, then that would be what I would be for, is that we take control of it and we do our own door-to-door census, because we need to know where our Cherokee citizens are at, and we don't need to rely on the state of Oklahoma or the U.S. government. We're fully capable of doing it ourselves. We've been talking about and throwing around the fact that it might cost us $1 million to do this. Well, I would rather pay $1 million to Cherokee people to find their own Cherokee people instead of relying on the state of Oklahoma or the U.S. government to do it for us. Thank you.
It's Ms. Fishinghoff.
I was just going to address what Tina was talking about earlier about using the ones that are outside the zip code. We've had this discussion 2 or 3 times, and I'm looking at notes again, and Jack Baker, who's an at-large, says, also the Constitution says we shall establish representative districts which are inside the border boundaries of the Cherokee Nation, so those outside the boundaries cannot be included in the Cherokee Nation boundaries. Jack agreed with Bill John again about the outside the boundary people having an at-large counselor. Bill John stated it was unconstitutional to accept a single soul that's outside the boundaries, and Julia voiced the same concerns as Bill John, and she was going to make the same remark. And folks, I'm just looking at it from a common sense point of view. So, you know, everybody, I get mad and I get aggravated, and I'm sitting back here and I started thinking about it, and I thought, you know, let's look at some other data. So I started looking at car tag money, and I took all the schools that was outside the 2-mile boundary out. Cherokee, Adair, Delaware, Mays, and I think Sequoia probably, I can probably ask one of you two, would be in the top 5 at car tag money. Then I looked at registered voters. Guess what 5 counties had the most registered voters? The same ones that had the most car tag money going to them. Then I looked at people who turned out to vote. Guess what top 5 counties had the biggest turnout of voters? The same ones. And then I looked at cemetery data, because we give money to cemeteries if you have a cemetery in your district that's 50% Cherokees in there. And guess what? Guess where all the cemetery money was going? To the same 5 counties. So folks, common sense tells me this ain't a coincidence once you look at all of that. I looked at registration data then. And 2 of the littlest counties that I seen on there, of course, is Chuck's 2 counties. And he wasn't in the top 5. But Chuck don't have a problem with it. There's another smaller county that has a problem with it, but they're not in the top 5. So if they've got all these Cherokees, or don't have all these Cherokees, depending on how you look at it, you know, is that the reason their cemeteries ain't filling up? Is that the reason they ain't getting any car tag money? Could it be my county's getting all the car tag money because I have Indians that are in school and that are actually buried there? Because the Indians are coming from somewhere, folks. They got to have a mom and a daddy. You know, that's just common sense. And I don't know why we don't sit back and look at it and say, hey, you know, the 9 districts may not be equal, but I'm telling you right now, folks, they're not too far off. I feel like this was started because of greediness, to be honest. A lot of it was over being greedy. You know, I'll put it out there. If you don't have the numbers without inflating them, folks, you don't have the numbers if you have to bring in somebody from the outside. And I feel like some of these people are committing fraud against my people because they are overinflating their numbers. So I feel like all of Adair County has fraud committed against them, and I feel like the Attorney General ought to check into it after a little while to see how my people are getting marginalized because of some person's greed. But folks, think of common sense. Look at cemeteries, look at car tag money, look at voting, look at registered voters, look at voter turnout. And you'll see they don't change, and they follow the same pattern as registration and the same pattern that's set now. Just use some common sense. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Is that all, Ms. Fishinghoff? Thank you. Mr.
now.
Huskins?
Yeah, just briefly, Madam Speaker. David, whatever map we pass today, if you could do it before next council meeting, that would be great. I know you've
When is
heard
it?
that a lot from us in terms of maps, but I'd like to see a map that, I'm showing in Madam Speaker just one of the 5 district maps, that, for example, takes a zip code that straddles a borderline and actually draws out. So if we look at a map, we can actually see which zip codes actually are in with the Cherokee Nation, whether they have 1 person or 100 people or 1,000 people. Because I'd kind of like to see a map that truly reflected that we have borders that are actually embracing people that are outside of the nation. I think being able to see that would help drive home the point that several of us are making, which is that we really are counting people that are outside the nation. But I think we need a visual aid, and if it's something you can do before the council meeting, that'd be great. If not, let me know, and just at some point I'd like to see that map. Is that something that you could,
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Count Watts, did you want to continue on with this?
No, I'm fine. I think that the discussion's been exhausted. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Justice?
I just wanted to address Mr. Hoskins' request. We've actually provided that map before in previous redistricting. I don't know if you can find it amongst all of them, but I'll get you an updated number.
You won't
with
be
the 5
surprised that
districts.
you can probably find it before I can. But if you can find it and could redistribute it, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, I think actually Mr. Crittenden has a copy of that map.
I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I've got it right here.
And I think if it showed our final map that we're approving, because frankly, our people need to know that we've approved a map that really doesn't include people that live outside Cherokee Nation. I mean, that is a demonstrable fact. And it's one that I think is a bit unsettling, but we are where we are. And I appreciate it.
Do you want to look at the 5 district with 110,000, or is it dependent on?
Well, whatever we pass.
Whatever
we pass, and then we'll just let that be drawn the way it. Thank you.
Because it depends on the methodology is why I was asking. Of
Well-
what number shows up.
Hopefully, whatever map we pass, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, but whether we agree with it or not, hopefully we'll be able to discern the methodology.
Yes.
I hope we're not passing a map where we really don't know the methodology. Thank you.
Ms. Fishing Hawk?
And I wanted to add one more thing I just have sitting here thinking about, and I may be wrong, Harley, tell me if I am. I guess about IRR roads, I'm saying most of your IRR roads is going to be in Adair, Sequoia, Delaware, names.
That's for sure. That's a fact.
You got that right. Hog the dog, didn't you?
David, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Hey, moving on down to items for consideration is item 3. It's an act that's amending our election law, and we have 4 maps. Shelley labeled those for us, trying to get us organized. 5A, 5B, 5C, and 5D. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
A second with 5B.
It's 5B, okay. Mr.
I was going to say, Madam Chairman, is that the...
Whoa, just a minute.
Madam Chairman, the floor needs to be open to make a motion to approve the act with a specific exhibit, A, B, C, or D.
Ms. Fishing Hawk, restate your motion.
Okay, I make a motion to approve 5D.
D,
5D. D. No, not this one. Okay. I make a motion to approve 5A.
Second.
the act with 5A. Give me just a moment. Now we're open for discussion. Mr.
We passed the second. We passed the same motion as the second.
No, we're working on passing the 5 districts with a specific map. And she's recommending 5A.
I was recommending before that for B or something like that, or D.
Well, she made the original motion and she seconded with 5B.
Okay.
So,
Then if we pass the original motion, 5B
I went with 5A, I just got it down the list.
Mr. Henry, clarify that.
Yes.
now you've got a motion with a D.
She
and
had a
D
motion.
I know you.
Would y'all be quiet? Mr. Henry, you have the floor.
Here's the state of the motion. She made the primary motion and did not specify a map. There was a second with, she said, 5B map. That would be in that would be like a friendly amendment. I will second this motion if you do map B. The primary mover of the item can either reject or can reject that second or accept it. Obviously, she has rejected that second with that caveat. So she has made a motion to pass a 5-district map with map A. That's the motion. There needs to be a second to that motion.
Did you-
Seconded it.
Okay, you seconded it. So we have an act with 5A as the proposed map, correct? Ms. Fitchington?
Yes, Speaker, I was just going to start down your map to go A, B, C, D is why.
We need a map.
A.
A, okay. Okay, now we're open for discussion. Ms. Helen Watts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just for clarification on the rules, if this fails with 5A, can we pick it up and reconsider it with a different map, or do we need to make a motion to amend the motion and to consider a different map?
Do we do each act, that particular act, do we do it specifically with each map, or do we pass it and amend with a different act, map?
What I would recommend to the council is basically what we call amendment by seriatim. We can take each one, and you could vote on 5 districts, map A. If it doesn't get a majority, vote for 5 districts, map B, until there is a majority on a map, and then a final vote on 5 districts with whatever map you come up with. If that does not receive a majority, then you go on to District 9. Then you go on to District 15, 15 districts, etc.
Okay, so we're voting on the act with map A first, and then if that fails, we go on to 5B, 5C, 5D. Is everyone clear?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Glad you all are. Okay, Mr. Hoskin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think that any 5-district map is not good. I think it's bad for our institution. I think it's bad for our people. I think I've laid out some of the reasons before. I think fundamentally smaller districts where the representatives are closer to the people, where it doesn't take someone who is either independently wealthy or aligned with whatever particular political establishment is carrying the say. I don't think it's a good situation. I think it makes it tougher to run, and it makes it tougher to serve, and the people who lose are our people. I do think the reality is, given the data that we have, the disagreements over how to draw the lines, mean that a 5-district map is going to pass today. And I think that's lamentable, but that's the reality. Specifically with respect to 5A, the problem that I have with it is that it creates a district for the northern end that is 5 counties. 5 counties that you could take large chunks of those counties and compare them to another chunk of it and say these demographics are way off. They don't have anything to do with each other. We get several urban areas with several rural areas. I think that map is problematic. I think there are better. It's kind of like pick your poison. It's the best of some really bad options when it comes to 5-district maps. I happen to think 5A is maybe not the worst map. Maybe it is the worst map. Certainly from the northern end perspective, my perspective, it's probably the worst map. At the same time, it does keep Washington and Tulsa together, which there's some wisdom in that. They're a very similar area. But when it comes to putting Nowata, Craig, and Ottawa with that, I don't think I can support it. What I would suggest, Madam Speaker, and I'll put this in the form of the motion, that no matter what map we pass today, we need to get a little more precise on our language when it comes to Section 5, where it talks about representation by district, specifically Section 5D. Right now, Section 5D says that in order to determine apportionment and districting for the 2013 elections, we have certain certain time targets we're going to adhere to. December the 1st, 2011, August 1st, 2012. I think what we need to say in here is that we're going to go to 15 districts. And I think the way we need to say it is we need to say the legislative branch shall determine apportionment and districting for no less than 15 districts for the 2013 private elections. And I would put that in the form of a motion.
I second it.
And is that an amendment to?
That's an amendment to
the-
Section 5D.
Is that you're proposing that amendment to the motion that's on the floor?
Well, the motion is to pass this legislation with 5A.
Right.
So what I'm saying is the legislation itself needs to be amended, and that's what I'm proposing. I mean, if we want to, and Madam Speaker, if we want to actually, for efficiency reasons, or if it's just better to put it off until after we decide the map, I'm happy to do that too. In fact, there may be some wisdom in that.
Okay, do you mind holding that?
I don't mind at all, and I've said my piece on the 5 districts. 5 districts are bad for this institution. 5A is probably one of the worst maps, particularly for the folks in my area.
Okay,
Thank you,
I
Madam
think it
Speaker.
would just create a little confusion at this point.
That's fine. I'll revisit it, Madam Speaker.
Right.
Thank you.
Problem solved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Count Watts?
Thank you. I think that for similar concerns that 5 districts are problematic, but where we're at today, 5 districts is the only way we can reasonably use what data we have available to us. Get some to a consensus quickly for the pending 2011 elections. But I also find 5A problematic. I think that it's geographically too large, and I do think that when we're considering the districts and we do have another option on the table, that we need to balance how large a district somebody would have to cover for the appropriate population. And since we have an alternative that is smaller, I can't support 5A, but I'm not opposed to 5 districts at this time for the 2011 election, given where we've ended up, and there's no other way but to move forward for the people. Thank you.
Personally, I like 5 districts. Okay, Mr. Garvin? Mr. Garvin, yes.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that we change the number of the districts on 2 and 3, switch those, that Adair and Delaware be 2, and Sequoia and Skokie McIntosh be 3.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
That was done before.
I wonder if we could also revisit these numbers when we get clarity on the map.
Can you hold off on that until we determine which map we're actually going to go with? Would that
That's fine.
be all right? Mr. Hudson?
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't support any of the 5 district maps. So I just feel like that we're using numbers that's not right. And you look at Miss Fishing Hawk's analysis of what happened in the Cherokee Nation, I think it makes sense to actually look at those counties. And the reason I'm saying that is because Delaware County actually has 2 representatives at this time, and the 5 district map is going to cut us to 3 for 2 counties. Now, it's been said that out in the areas that, oh, look at here, Delaware and Adair County, you're getting 3 representatives. But they didn't say you're losing one. So that's what we're doing. We're actually losing a representative because now we have 2 in Delaware and 2 in Adair County. When we say 3, you know, you're not telling the whole story, that you're actually losing a representative. But so I'm not going to be supporting any 5 district maps. I think the Constitution, when they had the convention, I think it was meant to be 15 representatives. And I'm going to stick with the 15 representatives until at least we get some good numbers on the thing. I think if you look at the UKB, they're out here in Delaware, they're out here in Adair County. I happen to represent UKB because they still use our Indian hospitals, they use our clinics, they use our roads, they use practically everything that the Cherokee Nation have. But I have a lot of UKB friends that actually use these services. They're Cherokees, just like we are sitting here at this table. They're Cherokees too. So we may not be getting a full count. If you look at our rural areas out here, we don't have the colleges, we don't have the hospitals out there, have the largest land base in Adair and Delaware County. Those land bases are there for a purpose, and they're served the Cherokee people. Now we're going to be spreading these out. And if you look at Adair and Delaware County, they could conceivably be 3 representatives from Delaware County, or they could be 3 from Adair County. So it's not make an equal representation fair to the Cherokee people. So I'll not be supporting any 5-district maps. Thank you.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes, I always supported 15 districts. Right now, we have 5 districts, and then it changed back to 9, but our people out there have received letters and showing their 5 districts, showing the precincts, and now we're going to turn around and change it. I think we've got to keep the 5 right now. I think that instead of having a special committee form, I think we need to have this every month at the Rules Committee, and so everyone that wants to be included will be included in on this and have their say, instead of having a special committee and having them meet and to whatever form. But it looks like to me that we need to go ahead, and I'm with these people that want to go ahead and pass this 5 district, because if we set up the 15 district or the 9 district or whatever else we set up right now, it's going to go back in the court. We're going to not have, the people out there need to be thought of, and I think we need to think of those people and not worry about splitting hairs right now. I think we need to split hairs this next rules meeting and month after month. So I've got to be for the 5 districts right now. I never did like the 5 districts myself, but right now I think it's the time to help the people, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the 5 district, whichever one will come up. Thank you, ma'am.
Any further comments on this amendment with map 5A? Mr. Baker?
Yeah, and I tend to agree with David. I don't think we have a choice but to go 5 districts. The judge has been pretty clear that either we fix it or he will, and he said that the 9 districts ain't going to work. That being said, there's 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D. Not crazy about any of them, but if we're going to follow the spirit of the law and the spirit of the people, then let's look at the map that comes closest to being equal, that has the absolute best numbers. 5A, the one that we're talking about now, has a variance of 19.27. The next one, B, is 19.28. C is 19.27, and D is 21.08. So, I mean, if we're going to try to do the best we can, let's pick one with the lowest number. And we're looking at one with the lowest number right now. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Hoskins?
Just briefly, and I respect Councilman Baker certainly in the idea of getting the closest number, but when it comes down to saying hundredths of a percent versus the configuration of a district, the configuration of the district has to win. So 5A has to lose.
Yes, Ms. Fulbright?
Yes, thank you. This has really been difficult for everyone, and I personally prefer the 15, but as Councilor Thornton already has said, everyone in our district received letters about a month ago notifying them that we had gone to 5. And I think it's too confusing at this late date to switch back to something else. So I'm going to stick with the 5. I don't know which one is the best, but I think we need to stick with 5. And that's where I'm going to go. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment containing... Did you have a comment?
I'd offer amendment to the sponsor that we substitute 5C for 5A.
Well, we're voting on each one.
Well,
individually. And the
I'd
one
like
that
to
gets a
vote on
majority.
5C first.
Well, we have 5A on the
amendment.
floor.
I'm making a friendly amendment to her. And she's
What's the will of the body, because we were going to do each one individually. Mr. Embry?
It's not the will of the body, I'm offering a friendly amendment to her motion, whether she accepts it or not.
Point of order, I thought we were talking about Dawn's amendment
Well,
or something.
it is my understanding that the committee wanted to go by a rule or amendment by seriatim, A, B, C, D. If A is not palatable, you vote A down. You vote B down. If C is the best, you go with C, or et cetera.
Todd,
Yes.
is it not correct under Robert's rules, I can offer a friendly amendment to the one that made the motion? Now, whether she accepts it or not is her decision.
You can, and if you're second,
Which I am the second.
okay.
So we should vote on 5C first.
Under Robert's Rules of Order, it would, unless the chair ruled it out of order because of the seriatim process, but under Robert's Rules, a friendly can be made.
Councilwoman Lori Jordan, we had already established the method we were going to use on this, each individual map. So I would prefer to continue that unless the body prefers to offer this amendment.
I don't think that's correct under Robert's rules. I challenge the chair.
Okay, all in favor of accepting that amendment, signify by saying aye.
I don't think it's something that you vote on.
Challenge
Hold
the
on.
chair.
Hold on.
The chair.
This is the situation we're in. Because of the seriatim process, she has ruled that the friendly amendment system is out of order. You have that under Robert's Rules of Order, you are challenging the position of the chair. Now, the question put forth to the body is, shall the chair's decision stand? A vote in majority backs the chair. A vote in the negative allows the
amendment.
yeah.
All in favor of supporting the chair? Say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
I oppose the method by which you offered it to them.
Call for question on 5A.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Aye.
Okay, 5A failed. Now we're going to 5B. Okay, open for discussion on 5B. Yeah. Who's making the motion to approve 5B?
I'll make the motion to approve 5B.
Second motion.
Okay, discussion? Any discussion on 5B? Dr. Cobb?
My constituents in Washington County have made it clear that irregardless of whatever map and whatever configuration there is, that they are adamantly for Washington County being grouped with Tulsa County. So I'm relaying that message from the constituents in Washington County.
Anything further?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Crittenden?
I have nothing against Ottawa County up there. That's, I was born in Ottawa County, but I think that's geographically too much to cover there for good representation, and so I don't support having that tacked on to Delaware and Adair County. I'm against that.
Okay. Ms. Cal Watts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think for the record, for the public, I don't think any of us necessarily care for the 5 districts. Well, okay, some folks care for the 5 districts.
Forget that.
Yeah, and change is uncomfortable for everyone. I understand that. So we've had a lot of economic development in Rogers County, and folks are registering for tribal citizenship earlier than they had because of the tags. So obviously our populations shift. So the question then becomes, what I learned in court was, if you are going to associate communities, there needs to be a rationale, and it needs to be documented, and it needs to be public. So I'm leaning towards Tulsa County because the folks in Mays County and other places seem to make it very clear that they didn't feel associated with this in earlier debate and that we were more of an urban community. I am happy to go with either, but I do feel like this 5B balances out the constituencies in their likenesses and how they might associate today. And it also balances out this geographical size of the area, because we know logistically we have a lot of work on our plate, even with just one community or one county, let alone combining counties, even with partners at the table. So I think that 5B is a compromise that we're going to need to live with for the 2011 election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Baker?
Yeah, and I guess it takes one half dozen the other. When you look at this map, Chuck, you're actually driving further on this map than you are on the last one. If you go to southern Mays County and southern Washington County from home, and the numbers are not, even though it's like 100, it's still, the numbers are not as good as the last map or the next map.
Ms. Fisher-Hawk?
I'm looking at what Bill John was talking about, the 100th of a percent. And when you use math, you don't use the difference up and down from a mean wall. It's 10% one way or the other. You don't add them and get a difference. If we was going to do that, then the court would have told us we would have had to be within 5% of the mean. That ain't math. Everybody that knows anything about math knows that. The second thing is, the arguments I remember hearing on the council floor the night that I think it was our at-large counselor, maybe the one from Rogers, tries to substitute the map, was because the map they had was more accurate. Well, if that holds true, then map A and C would be more accurate, not because of the difference at the bottom, but the actual percentages, because I remember hearing that, because that's why you two wanted a more accurate map. So it stands to reason, if that's the truth, then it would be A and C. And I think that needs to be pointed out to the body, unless there's, some alternative motive. Thank you.
Ms. Count-Watts?
Thank you. So, and I appreciate we do need to drive towards more accuracy, but given where we're at with data, once the 10% rule is met, which these maps meet the 10% rule, then we balance the needs of like constituencies and geographical size of districts within that 10% rule. I would love for this body, once we get done with this 2011 election, to actually address methodology and make clear, decisive decisions about how our data and apportionment should be treated and moving forward with the census. I would love to know that we know where all the Cherokees are. That would be excellent. I'm not standing in any way in front of progressing forward to get more accurate data. But once you meet that rule, which we have met and the courts have clearly defined, then we should balance these other needs and interests and try to balance out a better map, which 5B does. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, and clarificate, Todd, this map says that there's a 10.3% variance deviation. Is that problematic?
Anything above 10% is obviously throws in the question mark. If you look at the line of cases, anything above 10% can become constitutionally suspect. 10.3 is 0.03 is very, very slight. And it, yeah. I would think, based on my legal opinion, that 10.03 would not be problematic.
Can the Attorney General say that too?
I cannot speak for her, but she is here.
But she's here.
Councilman, I think all of these are 10.02, 10.03.
I understand.
If I were the court, and that was the best that you could do with that slight of variance, I think that was reasonable and acceptable.
Right.
The other Mr. Baker.
Yes, the court case itself says that the proposal submitted by Count Watts and reviewed by this court, which adds Washington County to neighboring District 4, rated for no water Craig and Mays County, combines Delaware and Adair counties with Ottawa to create District 3 would be constitutional. So the court has already ruled on 5B, stating that it would be constitutional. Thank you.
But did they know there was a vote?
Is that all, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Lori Jordan?
Well, I've listened to all the arguments, and I'm taking into consideration on my vote on 5B that Councilor Watts has said that she is not opposed to seeing Rogers County go either with Tulsa or with Mays County. However, Councilor Cobb has said that his people are adamant that they want to go to Tulsa, which would put us at 5C. So I'm going to oppose 5B in favor of 5C, which puts Washington County with Tulsa County, puts Rogers County with Mays County, of which then that would please both Mr. Cobb's people and Councilor Watts has said she's not opposed to that. So I think 5C, which is also going to be found, I believe, to be constitutional because it's even more accurate than 5B, and 5C was not even given to the Supreme Court. But I think they would find, if they're going to find 5B constitutional, they'll have to find 5C constitutional because it's even better percentage-wise by 1 point. This one's 10.02, while the one we're looking at is 10.03. So I believe if you all will look and consider 5C, it meets everyone's argument. So therefore I will oppose 5B and ask us to look at 5C.
Is there comments on the act with 5B included? All in favor of approving map 5B signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Aye. Roll call. Yes is for you support 5B.
Bradley Cobb?
No.
Joe Crittenden?
No.
Jody Fishinghawk?
No.
Meredith Fraley?
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright?
Yes.
Don Garvin?
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.?
Yes.
Tina Glory Jordan?
No.
Chris Toth?
Yes.
Curtis Snell?
No.
David Thornton?
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts?
Yes.
Buell England?
Yes.
Bill John Baker?
No.
Jack Baker?
Yes.
Harley Buzzard?
No.
Julia Coates?
Yes.
We have 10 yes and 7 no.
10 yes, 7 no. 5B is approved.
Call for question on the entire legislation? Sorry, maybe not. There's people raising their hands.
Mr. Hoskin?
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I would propose the amendment I referenced earlier, and what it would do, let me get to the section, it would amend Section 5 of the Act, Section 5D more specifically, says the legislative branch shall determine enforcement and redistricting for the 2013 tribal election. It should read, and under my motion, the legislative branch shall determine apportionment and districting for no less than 15 districts for the 2013 tribal election. So the phrase for no less than 13 districts would be inserted between the word districting and for. And the idea, Madam Speaker, is that I think the consensus of the council, at least from where I sit, is that 15 districts is the best arrangements for our institution. It's the best way to serve the people. We can't get there now. I think we're going to get there with the resources and the effort that we put into getting better data. I'd like to codify that intent by saying now that in 2012 we're not just going to revisit redistricting, we're going to revisit it for the purposes of getting 15 districts. I put that in the form of a motion, Madam Speaker.
I second it. Moved in second. Discussion? Any discussion? Ms. Coates? No.
I'm going to oppose this just because I don't like to place hamstrings on this body, which may be different from the body that, exists after August of this year, as to what they will decide to do in the future. I think that there are more innovative ways to handle this whole issue than to talk about 5, 9, 15, or, I mean, there are other kinds of ideas that we have not begun to explore in this body. And I think that placing things into legislation for the future, to hamstring future bodies on something like this, we don't have any assurance of what the data is going to be or that it will be any more workable in 2012 than it is presently. I know many people hope it is, and it may be that it is, but we don't know for certain that it will be. So for these and various other reasons, I will oppose mandating no less than 15 at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Calhoun-Watt?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Councilman, it pains me that I'm going to logistically need to, I think, oppose this today, but I absolutely agree that we need to figure out how to move forward. I would just like to address it in separate legislation at our next regular rules meeting, maybe not this month, but next month. And I will work with you to do that. I passed out amendments today that I'm not even going to ask to be considered so that we can move forward with 2011 elections. So, but I'm with you. I just want to do it at a different day. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Hoskins?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the comments from both the councilors. With respect to hamstringing future councils, that's true. I have to concede that's part of the problem. It's part of the aim here is to, in fact, if you want to use the word hamstring it, I would say we need to apply the leverage we have today to the council to decide this tomorrow. 15 districts is not going to be any worse idea a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, because fundamentally, in my opinion, what's best for this institution is the smallest district you can draw with one council member per district, so that they're more. That's the best way to be responsive to our people. Quite frankly, Madam Speaker, if we do this in separate legislation, I have every reason to believe the chief will veto it. The chief is as fundamentally opposed to 15 districts as I am for it, and he's laid out those reasons. A lot of it has to do with these claims about that we'll act in our selfish parochial interest, that we are really boiled down to 15, 17 politicians out for our hides for the next election. The fact of the matter is, there's good reasons that single-member, small districts are the best way to serve our people and the best way to develop political leaders within those smaller communities. So I think we need to do this now, and I'll be quite upfront about it. One of the reasons I want to do it now in this legislation because I think the chief's going to sign this law. Now, I know that if we get to 2012, and if despite our best efforts, again, that's assuming the administration follows through on what it's pledged to do. If despite our best efforts we just can't get the data, we just can't draw 15 districts, then I completely am comfortable with this council being wise enough, no matter who it's composed of, to say, you know what, this mandate that the council put in 2010, we can't carry through with it. So we can change this law if we had to, but I would rather, Madam Speaker, the burden be put on that council to change this law than to expect them to follow through with 15 districts. 15 districts is a good idea today. It's going to be a good idea in 2012. Why not today send the message to the people that 5 districts is really a stopgap measure? It's a stopgap measure because our data is flawed. We don't have it right. But this is the best that we can do is 5 districts. Let's make sure we're telling the Cherokee people today that we're moving to 15 districts. And we're so serious about it that we're willing to codify it into law today. So, Madam Speaker, I would urge my colleagues to approve the motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. Mr. Buzzer?
And I just want to echo what Councilor Hoskins said, and just think back what Councilor Watts just said. This has been going on for 2 terms, 7, almost 8 years. If this could have been mandated back when the old council was in there, it would have been done by now. So I support Councilor Hoskins' amendment.
Any other comments? Oh, Mr. Rankfield?
I don't know what the principal chief's position on this particular amendment would be, Councilman Hoskins, but I think that the possibility of just the fact of mandating it being arbitrary 15 might require the legislature to also make an amendment when we got the data. That I don't think that the administration would object if you had some language in this particular amendment would take into account that when we have better data, you can you can look at different redistricting sometime in the future. But mandate 15 when we don't know what the data is going to be just doesn't seem the thing to do at this particular time.
Just briefly, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate that, Mr. Ragsdale. I reject it because, for this reason, of course, we implicitly have the ability to look at the data and say, boy, the data is still flawed and it's 2012. We really have to take away this mandate. But my point is, quite bluntly, we need to impose this mandate today so it hangs over our head for the next year, 2 years, so that we stay on task. If we allow ourselves wiggle room to say, well, maybe 15 is not the goal, I promise you, Madam Speaker, the path of least resistance will be something short of 15 districts. That is bad for this institution, and it's not the way to serve the Cherokee people. So, Madam Speaker, I implore you and my colleagues to support this motion. Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
And one more comment. We've all sat around the table and talked about the 15 districts, and I believe the majority here are for the 15 districts. So if that's what we're for, then we need to put the word out there. That's what we want. At least strive for the 15 districts. So I'm going to support this.
Any other comments? Ms. Fulbright?
Yes, I urge everyone to vote for this. I think 15 is the ultimate goal, and reason being, right now, I represent all of Sequoyah County, and Councilman Thornton can attest to this. We get so many calls from our constituents, morning, noon, and night. I don't know how being bigger is going to serve the people more personally than the way we do it now. And I think smaller would be better. And I just think when you talk about service to the people and how you're going to respond to them, I know how many calls we get, how much red tape we go through, and I'm for 15, and I urge everyone to vote for 15. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fulbright. Mr. Thornton?
I've always been for the 15 districts, even when some people opposed it, and talked quite a bit on what districts, how many districts they were for the 5 districts. And that was here pretty recently in the last few months. I don't have a problem with it. My problem is that this council sits here, and if we put this on the agenda for rules, and I would like to put it on this kind of rules, please. But if we put it on the agenda and we start working on it month after month, why do we have to say we're going to mandate it? This council here can say we mandate it. They can say we're going to 15 districts. They can say we're not going to 15 districts. We're going to 5 or 8. It's this council's problem. That's in the Constitution. So I can't see mandating it, but I'm for it. And I just want you to know that your vote counts when you vote for these 15 different districts. And it doesn't make any difference if it's today or if it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, if we come up with something. It don't make any difference if it's 2 years from now or a month before the next election in 2013. If this council says this is what we're going to, that's what it's going to. And then we can turn around and if people want to sue, they can sue. But mandating something, I'm really not for mandating, but I'm going to vote for this. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor of this amendment, signify by Mr. Wright.
I just wanted to suggest once more, I do not know what the principal chief's position, but in view of moving on down the road, I don't think the administration would have a problem with similar wording to the fact that we would that the council would review the districting issue at some time, so that would remain a requirement that we do that. But to mandate it be 15 districts may have some issues with the administration, and that's without talking to the chief personally about that.
Call for question.
Question's been called. All minds clear. The amendment is Section 5D. The legislative branch shall determine apportionment and districting for no less than 15 districts for the 2013 tribal elections, ... Is that correct, Mr. Hoskins?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Aye. Roll call. Yes, and you're for the amendment.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
China Glory Jordan,
Yes.
Chris Soap,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts,
No.
Bill England,
Yes.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
No.
Janelle Fulbright.
Yes.
Thirteen yes and 4 no.
13 yes, 4 no. The amendment, Mr. Hoskin, approved. Okay.
Call for question? Madam Chair. Don Garvin was asking about changing numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Garvin, I do have you
Yeah, I
now.
make a motion that District 2 and District 3, the numbering be changed, reversed.
I second
3
it.
becomes 2 and 2 becomes 3.
I second it.
Moved in second, district on map 5B, District 2 becomes 3,
3,
and District 3 becomes 2.
yes ma'am.
Okay, all minds clear? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Yes, any other comments? Yes, Ms. Count?
Do we need a technical amendment to name the map in the actual body of the legislation? I believe it's like blank. There's empty quotes or something.
It's 5B, but if you want a technical name, propose one.
Here's Matt.
Capital letter?
The body passed map 5B, that is, through the seriatim process, that is the letter that is automatically placed in there, so there's no need for a specific amendment.
Technical enough. All right, Mr. Embry.
All right, question with that technical amendment.
All right, any further discussion? Entertain a motion. Oh, thank you very much for your patience and patience. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Call for question on
That-
main legislation.
The whole thing. All in favor
Yes, adjourn.
of this amendment, taking section 5B with the map?
No, Madam Chairman, we've adopted the amendment map that has received a majority, and we've taken care of Mr. Hoskins' amendment to the act and Mr. Garvin's amendment to the act. What needs to happen now is a final passage on the act itself. Yeah, and it should be by roll call.
That's what I said.
Point of clarification.
Okay.
Chuck's amendment is with the map and with the main legislation, is that right?
That's correct.
Everything is,
Yeah.
we're just voting on everything?
Mr. Baker?
I'm going to ask by acclamation so that we'll know that it's veto-proof and that the election commission can go forward and get about their business.
By acclamation. Mr. Buzzard?
Well, I'm still opposed to the 5-district map, but I'm going to vote for the overall question. I just want to put that on record.
Yes or no? Can't be by acclamation if you vote no.
I'm going to vote for it, but I'm going to make
okay.
a statement that I'm still for the 16th district. I'm against the 5-district map.
Mr. Buzzard?
Just like
Did someone else have their hand up? Joe. Oh,
I want to second what Harley just said. I'm going for this because of some of the stuff that's been added in, but I don't like the 5-district map. Never have. I like the 9-district a whole lot better.
Mr.
Oh, third one.
He wants to start it.
What I heard say.
Ms. Fishinghawk?
All for what Carter said, because I don't much care for it either, and I feel like Adair County and Sequoia County is getting, I'm trying not to be
I
what's
think
worse.
everybody likes 15, so can we vote on this 5 districts legislation with the amendment? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Who was that?
That would have been by acclamation. By rule, we have to take a roll call.
Okay, then take one.
Roll call. Yes, as you support this 5-district legislation with 5B and with the amendments.
Chris Soap,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Karen Cowan Watts.
Yes.
Bill England, Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
No.
Julia Coates, Bradley Cobb,
No.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishenhawk,
No.
Meredith Bailey,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright,
Yes.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Tina Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
we have 13 yes and 4 no.
Motion carried. Yay! Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, don't say no.